Part 34. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 333. In order to survive, Ming Zhen had to confess, the Lord of Wenan County is Dong's biological daughter, and Miss Ling is the biological daughter of the princess. Han Yao yelled at Ming Zhen angrily, "You are talking nonsense, how could I be the Dong family's child? I am the biological child of the prince and princess. You can't even think of slandering my identity." Han Yao was almost furious. Ming Zhen took her virginity away, and instead of helping her, he helped that Ling Chu. Ming Zhen didn't want to tell the truth unless he had to. Not to mention, he has only one way to die. At that time, the princess went to Kongsu Temple to offer incense, and Mr. Dong also went to Kongsu Temple on the same day. Unexpectedly that day, first a group of refugees broke into the Taoist temple, followed by a group of gangsters. Due to the shortage of food in Guanli, the refugees and gangsters robbed the food. In order to save the food in the Taoist temple, some Taoist priests secretly induced the refugees to rob the pilgrims who came to the temple to offer incense. Of course, outsiders don't know this. At that time, Princess Ding Yuan was pregnant with Liujia. The maids and women waiting around her were scattered by the refugees, and the princess was knocked down by the refugees. Just when she fell, Mr. Dong happened to be not far from her. Watching the pregnant Princess Ding Yuan being robbed and wrestling and bleeding a lot, Dong was frightened. She was wearing a full head of vermilion, and she did not escape the robbery of the refugees. When I was resisting, I was pushed down and fell down. My fetus was convulsed on the spot and I lost a lot of blood. Although Princess Ding Yuan tried her best to take her to a side room, she fell asleep after giving birth. Ms. Dong was left alone. None of the maids and women who were around to serve her when she gave birth, and there was no midwife. Ms. Dong was in pain and scared. When the nun next to her found her and helped her give birth to twins, she found that her son was so thin and small that he could barely hear his cry. Looking at the eldest son who was so thin that he could die at any time, Ms. Dong felt resentful in his heart. She hated that the princess was dressed so well that the refugees came to rob her and all her jewelry was robbed. He hates the princess to affect her fall and blood, which leads to premature birth. But after the princess gave birth to the child, she ignored her and left her alone to worry. Ms. Dong felt that if there had been no princess, she would not have suffered so much, and the children who were born prematurely would not be in poor health. In order to take revenge on the princess, Dong asked her aunt to secretly exchange Han Yao and Ling Chu. The Dong family wanted Han Yao to replace Ling Chu and enjoy the splendor and wealth of the Ding Yuan palace. She originally wanted to take revenge on Ling Chu for her resentment towards the princess. But every time she saw Ling Chu, Dong would think of the sin she had suffered. So he found Taoist Ming Zhen privately and asked him to give Ling Chu orders to punish his 6 relatives. At that time, Ming Zhen didn't know that Dong had secretly changed her children. He thought she was patriarchal, so she asked him to give orders. Ming Zhen originally didn't want to agree, but Dong threatened him openly and secretly. If he didn't agree, she would go to the government to sue him. It was he who attracted the refugees to Kongsu Guan, which caused them to rob her, causing her to give birth prematurely. Ming Zhen was forced by the power of Shang Shufu and had no choice but to agree to Dong's approval of Ling Chu's orders. The prince and the princess, Pandao, was forced by the Dong family, so he had no choice but to order Miss Ling to punish her 6 relatives. Pandao didn't know that Dong had changed the child at that time, so he begged the prince and princess to spare Pandao's life because Pandao didn't know about it. Ms. Dong glared at Ming Zhen angrily, "You're talking nonsense, prince and concubine. This Taoist priest obviously can't stand the poison to force a confession. In order to survive, he slandered me." Then he said angrily to Ling Chu, "I know that because I fostered you in a Taoist temple since you were a child, you have resentment towards me. Mother admits that she is not good enough to you, and she has not cared enough about you for so many years. It is right for you to be resentful towards your mother, but you are indeed my biological daughter. You can't join forces with your senior brother to poison Taoist Master Ming Zhen and let him frame your mother just because you have resentment towards your mother and feel that the Ling mansion has fallen. Ling Chu waited for Dong to finish scolding, and then asked expressionlessly, "Are you my biological mother? Did I join forces with my senior brother to let Ming Zhen frame you?" Ling Chu sneered, turned around and took a few letters from Xiaji, and threw them in front of Dong. "Then tell me, what are these?" Ms. Dong's face turned pale. She didn't expect that this actually got the letter between her and Han Yao. Ling Chu handed the letters to King Dingyuan. "The prince and princess must recognize the county master's handwriting, right? You will be able to clearly understand whether I have made any slander or not after reading these letters." He then turned to the three silent Ling family members and said, "You must also recognize Dong's handwriting." When Han Yao saw those letters, she recalled that as soon as Dong met her, she said she had received her letter and rushed over immediately. She realized that she and Dong had fallen into a trap. Han Yao suddenly sneered, took out a piece of letterhead from her sleeve pocket and threw it in front of Ling Chu. "These letters were not written by Mrs. Dong at all, they were forged by you. You imitated Mrs. Dong's handwriting to send letters to your mother and me. I also secretly invited my father, the queen, my mother, and the concubines to come over, and deliberately let them hear the excerpts of the opera that Mrs. Dong and I rehearsed, in order to mislead them into thinking that I was not my biological child. I will poison Taoist Master Ming Zhen again and make you a witness to frame Mrs. Dong. Miss Ling, I didn't expect you to be so scheming and create such a big situation. But fake ones are fake. You can't use these forged letters to deceive my father, the queen, mother, and concubines. You saw that the Ling mansion was in decline, and you tried your best to steal my identity. Miss Ling, if you act like this, where will your parents, grandparents, and grandparents be placed? Chu, it turns out that you forged this letter by imitating the county master's handwriting. You really disappoint me. You have only been back in Beijing for a few months, but you have become obsessed with glory and wealth. In order to cling to power, you even gave up your biological parents and grandparents. Had I known you were so unfilial, I shouldn't have sent someone to take you back in the first place." Listening to Mrs. Dong's accusations against Ling Chu one after another, Qing Feng couldn't bear it and shouted loudly, "That's enough. I might as well tell you that this letter of yours, Mrs. Dong, and the letter in Miss Han's hand were both forged by this prince. King Dingyu and the prince and the princess were also invited here." Qing Feng dropped these few words and said to Prince Dingyuan with a stern face, "As for whose hand the other letters were written, the prince can ask Yu Jiju, the Imperial College supervisor, to help identify them. What is the truth? I believe Yu Jiju will come to a conclusion." Yu Jiju, the head of the Imperial Academy, was the most knowledgeable person in calligraphy in the court, and very good at identifying handwriting. Whether those letters were forged by Ling Chu or written by Han Yao of the Dong family could never be concealed from his eyes. Qing Feng looked at Dong and Ling Zone coldly. "Don't say that you are not Ling Chu's biological parents. Even if you are not worthy of being her parents. She is our Xian Qingguan, raised by my master. In our eyes, she is the most precious treasure in the world. You can't even tell the difference between fish eyes and pearls. It's no wonder that your Ling mansion has fallen from the lofty Shangshu mansion to this. You are so blind that your defeat is not unfair at all. Thanks for supporting this moment, laughing with you, Litsit, Clear Sky After Rain. Ed, and Purgatory Phoenix King monthly ticket. Thanks to Forget Me Not. Why do we get older? 2023 033 1230. Duh. A. Purple Leaves, 854009, Past Events. EB. 20230208431051, China Fuse, Yunyun Zongshen, 202-310-2080. DD, this moment, laugh with you, by taxi's head is sleepy, Kingsha makeup, Jinjiagzi, 20230105200836319, clear sky after rain. Ed, 2023-071-6797. BC, 20090811, half an apple, lazy Zixi, pick up the pen for the future, colorful life, silent blessing, happy baby, Ixixi, fish in the starry sky. Yangliuan, prose. BA, Sankai. DB, Eden of the East, UN1 and other book friends recommend and vote for support. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 334. Qing Feng rarely gets angry, but at this moment he scolded him mercilessly. The three people in the Ling mansion had gloomy faces, but they were concerned about his identity and did not dare to refute. After Qing Feng scolded the people in the Ling mansion, he said to Han Yao contemptuously, "There is no need to fight for the identity of a mere county leader." Qing Feng suddenly became dissatisfied with King Dingyuan and his wife. He simply turned to Ling Chu and said, "Xiao Si, go back with your senior brother, our Prince Rui mansion is short of a princess, and it would be best if you could be the one. After sending you home, I will go to the palace in person to find the emperor to grant you a title." Ling Chu twitched the corners of his mouth and looked at him speechlessly. Qing Feng knew from the look on her face that she had no intention of being a princess. He wasn't angry either. Instead, he suddenly grinned and said, "Xiao Si, if you don't want to be a princess, why not become a national advisor? At any rate, the master is not interested." Qing Feng originally just said it casually. But after he said the words, he felt that it was a good idea. Master does not want to be a national master. He and the two senior brothers above are also used to living a free life and do not want to be bound by the rules of the palace. It would be better to let Ling Chu be the national master. Qing Feng frowned. He remembered that he had overheard a conversation between the master and the senior brother, and it seemed that the junior sister was very talented in mystical arts. In addition to the sentence, the master seemed to have said something else, seal. Qing Feng rubbed his chin, racking his brains and unable to remember what the master and his senior brother had said in detail. If he's because he was a young man and always listened to the master's words in one ear and out the other. I don't even bother to pay attention to things that have nothing to do with me. No, he had to write a letter to ask the master what he had sealed for the little junior sister. He also needs to write a letter to the senior brother. If the master doesn't want to tell him, he will ask the senior brother. Forget it, let's write a letter to the second senior brother too. If the first senior brother also keeps it secret, ask the second senior brother to give him some medicine and he should be able to ask. Hearing that Qing Feng asked Ling Chu to be the national master, everyone had different expressions. Ming Zhen was angry in his heart. He had tried every means to plan but failed to become a national advisor. Qing Feng actually asked a girl to become the imperial advisor. Mother and daughter Dong and Han Yao were frightened at first, but soon scorned it, thinking that Qing Feng was just a whim. Since ancient times, only men have served as state advisors. The emperor is not a foolish emperor, so how could he allow what happened to Si Chen? Ling Mao and Mrs. Tai looked at each other, and a light flashed in their eyes. If Ling Chu can really become a national master, it will be a great thing for the Ling mansion. The Ling family wants to return to the court, and it will be just around the corner. As for Han Yao, they cannot recognize her. Not only will it not bring any benefit to their Ling mansion, but it will also offend King Dingyuan. King Dingyuan frowned and was a little dissatisfied with Qing Feng. The position of national advisor has always been held by men, and no woman has ever been a national advisor. If Ling Chu were to become a national counselor, he would definitely be opposed by everyone in the court and even be reviled by others. King Dingyuan didn't want Ling Chu to face that. The Dingyuan palace is already rich enough and has no shortage of power. There is no need to exchange children for more benefits. As his daughter, as long as she is happy and lives the life she wants in peace, it will be fine. Ling Chu has the support of his father and her two brothers, Han Lin and Han Song, so no one can bully her at will in the future. Wei Feng stood beside Ning Chui, looking at him secretly one after another. I couldn't help but curse in my heart. Your Excellency looked thoughtful. Could he really be considering letting Miss Ling become the national preceptor? Although Miss Ling is good at mystical skills, with her help, our Jin Wei can do things with twice the result with half the effort. If she becomes the national master, it will definitely be beneficial to their Jin Wei. However, there has never been a precedent for Kondeo to be a national teacher. Even if the emperor agrees, the ministers in the court will definitely object strongly. Princess Dingyuan did not want Ling Chu to be the national counselor. In her opinion, it was a completely thankless job. She owed Ling Chu so much, and wished she could be by her side all the time, so that she could easily compensate for the suffering she had suffered since she was a child. How could she be willing to be a national counselor and endure the criticism and opposition from everyone in the court? The princess glared at Qing Feng and said, "How can Chu become a national counselor? That will affect her future job." Ling Chu was unable to hold his forehead. How come this topic has got to the point where she gets married? Don't say she doesn't plan to get married at all. She is not interested in the title of county lord or princess. As for the national preceptor, I have never thought about it. In this life, Ling Chu has only one goal. That is to live a stable life, work hard to make money, accumulate merit, take good care of yourself, and try to live as long as possible. As for the others, they were all outside her scope of consideration. She wanted to find out her life experience because she wanted to avenge the original owner, expose the Dong family and Han Yao, and prevent those in the Ling family from using her marriage for profit in the future. Third senior brother, have you forgotten the saying, don't do to others what you don't want others to do to you? Although the capital city is good, the outside world is also good. Third senior brother, when you leave Beijing again, please remember to have someone deliver a letter to me. I promised to provide for the master in his old age. When things come to an end, I will go with you to find the master. Ling Chu's words were not a lie. In this world, the person who was best to the original owner was Master Xian Yi. Since she inherited the body of the original owner, she should take care of her in her old age. It is better to travel through time and see the mountains and rivers of this dynasty with Master Xianyi than to be trapped in the capital all the time. Qing Feng twitched the corner of his mouth, that's all. Although he intends to let his junior sister become a national preceptor, this is not something that can be accomplished in a short time. It won't be too late to make plans after he figures out why the master wants to seal Xiao Xi's mysterious skills. Ding Yuan King and his wife and Han Lin did not expect that Ling Chu would leave the capital. Wei Feng suddenly felt a bit chilly around him, as if he was standing in an ice cellar. He raised his hand and rubbed his arm, then calmly took 2 steps away from Ning Chui. The matter should be settled. Ling Chu walked towards Han Yao step by step. He glanced at her condescendingly and raised his hands to say goodbye. Seeing her unkind expression, Mrs. Dong felt anxious and looked at Ding Yuan King and the others frequently. Seeing that none of them stopped Ling Chu, Dong could only step forward quickly. Chu, what are you doing? Qing Feng frowned and threw a binding talisman towards Dong. Han Yao looked pale and felt uneasy, but her leg was broken and she couldn't move at all. She could only watch helplessly as Ling Chu stripped her of his own merit and luck. Han Yao vomited a mouthful of blood due to the overwhelming anger and backlash. Mr. Dong felt distressed and glared at Ling Chu, what did you do to the Lord of Wenan County? Ling Chu looked at Mr. Dong expressionlessly, the prince and princess didn't say anything, but you feel distressed first. Being connected by blood is really different. What nonsense are you talking about? Ling Chu was impatient to listen to Dong's sophistry, and waved his hand to call out a shovel and a small hammer, and accused Dong and Han Yao respectively, "Are you going to go on your own, or should I do it?" Thanks to Asing's mother, Pen Yongfang, Chu Fen Yungxiang, Xiao Xiao Hanyu, Mu Mu Tata and other book friends for their monthly support. Thanks to Feng Kishan, Eden of the East, picking up the pen for the future, Wuhu Dash, Hui.ea, Pros. B.A., Xianbin, 1311192132222849, Dusty Memory, Yangliu Bank, and the Hacked Book friends who kept checking in again, Fei Wenli, Fei Yefei, Heartbeat on the left, Kuanglei 123, UN1, Happy Baby, Hua. Mo Yan, 20230521742110, Purgatory Phoenix King, China Fuse, 202301210127022243. Scarred, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, 15021620352969, free as the wine 459, A. Purple Leaves, All Living Things, Holding a Pen to See the Future, Morning Glory Under the Scorching Sun, CHLWCH, Yin Yan, Light Gauze Makeup, Fallen Leaves No Autumn. Ad, Betaxi My Head is Sleepy, Why Do I Grow Old, 20231008623025, Half an Apple, Scar Red, Ixixi, Eden of the East. 202203171637233913. 20231008623025 and other book friends recommended votes to support. Thanks to the book friends Hongxiu and Xiaoxiang for their support. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 335. Mr. Dong has never been so angry as she is today. This disaster has sent her and Yao Yao on the road, which means they are going to die. What, are you trying to force your own mother to death? Ling Chu sneered, since I am not your biological child, and you have never raised me for a day, who do you think you are? Because of you, I was sent to a Taoist temple for foster care as soon as I was born, and I had never seen any relatives before Gigi. After I got my hair cut, you sent a maid to take me to the capital. On the road, we encountered a mudslide first. I was thrown out of the carriage and my head was badly bruised. I almost lost my life. There were assassins who wanted to shoot me. These things are all arranged by you. At that time, the former Ling Chu died in your hands. Ling Chu could not clearly say that the original owner had been killed, so he could only mention it in this way. After I returned to Beijing, I wanted to break off the engagement, but you tried to stop me in every possible way, trying to give Ling Qing my marriage in the Duke of Zhao's palace. After I exposed that Zhao Jingming was a husbandman, I insisted on breaking off the engagement, but you sold me to him as a concubine. As for the head of Wenan County, he repeatedly sent guards to assassinate me. He also found local gangsters to slander my innocence on the street and wanted to sell me to Yu Hongyuan. They even colluded with Master Ming Zhen and his disciples to rob me of my luck and merits and to put me to death. Everything you have done to me, shouldn't I seek justice for myself? Qing Fen was shocked and angry. He did not expect that Ling Chu would encounter so many things after leaving Xianqing Temple. When he saw Ling Chu, he was ready to kill Dong and Han Yao. King Feng's eyes changed slightly, Xiaoxi. Princess Dingyuan looked anxious, Shuchu. Ning Chui's face was expressionless, and the long sword had been unsheathed. King Dingyuan did not bring any weapons, so he dodged and rushed toward the shovel. Han Lin took a step slower and rushed towards the small hammer. Worried about hurting Prince Dingyuan and his son, Ling Chu had no choice but to stop. Qing Feng breathed a sigh of relief. Even though Han Yao of the Dong family deserves to die, outsiders have no idea what they did. If it were spread that Ling Chu had killed her mother, her life would be ruined. Qing Feng didn't want Ling Chu to have the reputation of being such a rebellious person, so he said with a sullen face, "Xiaoxi, don't dirty your hands." Seeing Ling Chu's expressionless face, he suppressed his heartache, softened his voice, and took out a medicine bottle from his sleeve pocket. With a voice full of disgust, he said, "Master, why did you give you a big shovel and a small hammer as a magical weapon? If you use these things to kill someone, the blood will make you sick. Your senior brother, I have finally returned to the capital, and I am preparing to have a taste of Kyoto's delicacies, but I don't want to be so disgusted that I can't eat anything." He put on a calm expression again and said, "I still have 2 pills here, so let's give them to them. Anyway, second senior brother's side has a lot of pills, and it would be a waste to leave them alone. It's better to make the best use of them. I haven't used this medicine yet, so I just want to try it to see if it is like what the second senior brother said, it will kill you when you take it into your mouth." Ling Chu frowned. Although he stopped the big shovel and the small hammer, he had no intention of letting Dong and Han Yao go. She knew why they were trying to stop her. She doesn't care about reputation. Comparing fame and revenge, she naturally chooses the latter. Dong's hands and feet were so frightened when she saw the big shovel coming towards her that she was relieved. She was relieved when she was stopped by King Dingyuan. It can be seen that Ling Chu did not take the shovel back and said angrily, "What, do you really want to kill your mother?" Ning Chui's eyes were cold, and veins were bulging on the back of the hand holding the sword. A murderous aura rushed straight at him. Dong's eyes were frightened, and there was a thin layer of sweat on his forehead. At this moment, the door of the elegant room was pushed open, and Yin Sha walked in with an evil aura. "Sir, we've been caught." Ning Chui pursed her thin lips and looked at Ling Chu. "Miss Ling, the investigation you asked has come to fruition." Ling Chu looked back at him with a slightly startled expression. But she quickly came back to her senses. She once asked Mr. Ning to help investigate the matter of the Dong family and Princess Dingyuan giving birth to a child in Kongsugwan. Seeing that she remembered, Ning Chui waved to Yin Sha. Yin Sha retreated immediately. For some reason, Mr. Dong suddenly felt a little uneasy. After Yin Sha retreated, he quickly turned around. Hand in hand, an old woman with white hair came in. Mr. Dong's eyes fell on the old woman, looked at her for a few times, and felt a little relieved when she found that she didn't recognize her. But when the old woman raised her head anxiously, Dong's eyes went dark. Seeing the people in the private room, the old woman looked even more frightened. Ever since Yin Sha and his men suddenly broke into her home, at first, the old woman thought these people were here to rob money. Afraid that those bad guys would kill her. But Yin Sha ordered her to be taken away together with the old man in the family, her son, daughter-in-law, and even her grandchildren without saying a word. They were not killed, and their family's money was not robbed. But the old woman and her family were still anxious and confused, not knowing who they were. Even less sure where they are going to be taken by that group of vicious people. Racked my brains and couldn't remember who they had offended. Along the way, the old woman and her family tried to skirt around the situation. But no matter what they asked, those people kept silent. They were angry, but helpless. But as she got closer and closer to the capital, the old woman began to feel uneasy. There is already a guess in my mind. The old woman wanted to escape, but she couldn't find a chance. Until this moment, when she saw Mr. Dong and King Dingyuan and his wife, the old woman collapsed on the ground. In the private room, other people didn't know why. Ning Chui lowered his eyes were cold, and his voice was even more murderous. "Tell me exactly what happened in Kongsugwan back then. You must not conceal or omit, let alone distort or fabricate the facts. Let's make it clear and your family members will be spared, otherwise. How else, he didn't say. The old woman also knew that she was going to kill her whole family. The old woman is content to have the matter exposed and to save the lives of her family. He knocked his head hard and raised it again. He did not dare to hide anything and confessed immediately. This old woman is Mrs. Zhang, Dong's companion and her confidant. Back then, I accompanied Dong to offer incense at Kongsu Temple, but was dispersed by the refugees. After the refugees left, they followed the blood trail and found the side compartment where Princess Dingyuan and Mrs. Dong were hiding. Finding out that Ms. Dong was about to give birth prematurely, Mrs. Zhang endured her panic and helped her give birth to the child. Seeing that they were twins, Mrs. Zhang was secretly happy. Just when she thought Mrs. Dong would not blame her for failing to protect her master, Mrs. Dong ordered her to secretly replace Princess Dingyuan's child. Mr. Zhang was afraid. Who was Princess Dingyuan? How could she dare to replace her child? She didn't want to agree, but Dong threatened to kill her with a stick because of her inability to protect the Lord. Mr. Zhang didn't want to die, so she had no choice but to do as she was told. After changing the child, Mrs. Dong asked her to find a Mingzhen Taoist to give the princess's child a fate that would punish the 6 relatives, and finally forced her to send the child to Xianqing Temple. In order to survive, Mrs. Zhang had no choice but to do as she was told. But she did such a thing and knew that Mr. Dong would definitely silence her. After sending the child to Xianqing Temple, Mrs. Zhang did not return to Beijing, but chose to fly away. Later, when Mrs. Dong couldn't find her, Mrs. Zhang settled down, got married, had a child, and lived a pretty good life. If Yin Shai hadn't led people to arrest her family, Mrs. Zhang would have even forgotten what she had done. Thanks to Sunyan Moixi, Cooking My, Purple Aftertaste, Tang Shuang, Asin Mama, Asin Mama, Asin Mama, 201904170851186721602211013110131194, 1607111749258886, Crazy Heart 80 China Fuse monthly ticket support. Thank you for the eternal love, colorful life, people are emotional, Xiaomei, scarred, Betaxi's head is sleepy, Xianbin, Wuhu -2023-110-3961. BC, Nan Xiangxi, 1311192132222849, Falling Leaves No Autumn. Ad, Purple Aftertaste, Scorching Sun The Morning Glory Below, Jade 333, Why It Grows Old, Shangsuan Yu, 2023010520083639, Prose. BA, UN1, All Living Things, Purgatory Phoenix King, Eden of the East, Minjaya ###, Sihide, China Fuse, Exquisite and Clear Heart. AE, Chen, This Moment, Laugh With You, This Moment, Laugh With You, Pick Up the Pen and Look Forward to the Future, Ixixi, 202212010052452118, Forget Me Not, Zhou Chuhan's Mother, Colorful Life, Freedom Like the Wine 459. UN1, Sankai. DB, Why Do We Grow Old, Zhou Chuhan's Mother, Hacked Book Friends keep re-signing and recommending votes for support. Thanks to Hungzio and Hungzio for supporting Book Friends. I Made a Fortune by Raiding Houses in Ancient Times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 336. Zhangzi, I have always treated you well, but you stole my jewelry and ran away, and now you are here to slander me. Has your conscience been eaten by a dog? Listening to Mrs. Zhang telling her everything about what happened that year, Mrs. Dong felt flustered. But his face showed a look of righteous indignation, and he cursed Mrs. Zhang angrily. Lest Ning Chui and King Dingyuan believed Dong's words and wanted to kill her whole family. After Mrs. Zhang kowtowed heavily, She raised her hands and swore, "Sir, this old slave swears that everything I said is true and there is absolutely no lie." At that time, Mrs. Jong went to the house of the Minister of Household Affairs with Dong as her dowry, and she worked hard to become her confidant. Originally Mrs. Jong was married, but the man died not long after the marriage. Later, I finally fell in love with a steward and was preparing to get married for the second time. Who knew that Mrs. Dong forced her to secretly change her daughter to Princess Ding Yuan? In order to avoid being silenced by Dong, she had no choice but to run away. Because she was worried that Dong would send someone to kill her, she could only remain anonymous and hide in a very remote village far away from the capital. Although she got married and gave birth to children in these years, her life was not as good as when she was in the capital. If Mrs. Dong hadn't forced her to change her child, she must have already married the steward. Mr. Zhang also had grudges against the Dong family. "Madam, this old slave never told a lie back then. The old slave advised you not to change your child. But you refused to listen and forced me to do it. You resent the princess for attracting refugees to rob you, causing you to fall down and give birth prematurely. But those refugees have nothing to do with the princess at all. Also, if you hadn't seen the princess's motorcade on the street heading to Sugwon, and you started to cling to her, wanting to get to know her, and then decided to go to burn incense, how could you have encountered those refugees robbing you?" Having her thoughts exposed in public, Dong's face turned red and white. Although she was embarrassed, she still wanted to quibble. "You're talking nonsense." Ms. Dong was so focused on how to get out of her guilt that she didn't realize that Princess Ding Yuan was filled with guilt because she didn't know that Ling Chu had been secretly replaced. Seeing that she was still trying to quibble even now, she was so angry that she trembled all over and almost fainted. King Ding Yuan was even more furious. Just as Dong's quibbling words came out, a murderous aura suddenly burst out from King Ding Yuan. With a movement of his body, he arrived at Wei Feng's side, and with lightning speed, he pulled out the Xiaochun knife from his waist. Before anyone could react, he waved his hand and a cold light flashed through. The embroidered spring knife has been inserted into Dong's chest. Mr. Dong grabbed the knife on her body with both hands, stared wide-eyed, and threw it heavily to the ground. His pupils were full of disbelief. Han Yao looked horrified, screams came to her mouth, and she tried her best to hold it back. Ning Chui glanced at King Ding Yuan and slowly put the long sword back into its scabbard. The three people in the Ling mansion looked pale, but seeing King Ding Yuan's gloomy face, no one dared to speak. Afraid that he would kill them all too. No one expected that King Ding Yuan would suddenly kill Dong. There was silence in the private room. After a long time, Ling Chu finally broke the silence and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty. Although I feel a little regretful that I cannot avenge the original owner personally, if the original owner knew about it, I think he would be happy. Her biological father personally avenged her." King Ding Yuan frowned and was about to correct her title. The door to the private room was suddenly pushed open by a strong force. It took so many years to learn that his biological daughter had been exchanged, and King Ding Yuan was in a bad mood. He was suddenly interrupted by the banging of the door, and he turned his head sullenly. They saw Han Song helping the madam, who looked unhappy, into the private room. The guards following him were blocking the shopkeeper and the clerk behind Cha Yueju. While the door to the private room was pushed open, the shopkeeper took a quick look at Ning Chui. Seeing him nod slightly, he breathed a sigh of relief. Han Song and his wife arrived suddenly, bringing with them guards. In order not to expose their identities, the shopkeeper could not fight with the guards. "Mom, why are you here?" King Ding Yuan glared at Han Song, and then asked his wife. The wife glanced at everyone with a sullen face. "I heard from the maid that Yao Yao left the house suddenly. Her muscles and bones have been injured for 100 days, and her legs are not healed, so how can she run around?" When Han Yao saw the sudden appearance of the wife, her tears immediately fell down. "Grandma, Second brother, you are finally here. Han Song didn't see King Dingyuan glare at him. When he entered the private room, he was shocked to see Han Yao lying on the ground in a miserable state. His father and eldest brother stood aside with a sullen face, while his mother and concubine stood with that Miss Ling. As for Han Yao, no one paid attention to her. Han Song was puzzled and distressed, and rushed over quickly. Yao Yao, what's wrong with you? Seeing a pool of blood in front of Han Yao, Han Song was even more frightened and angry. If his father, queen, concubine, and eldest brother were not present, he almost couldn't help but ask who hurt her. Holding back his anger, Han Song picked up Han Yao and placed her on a chair. Seeing that her leg was broken again, Han Song couldn't hold it back and turned around with a frown. Father, king, and concubine, what happened? Why is Yao Yao injured? King Dingyuan did not reply to him. He frowned and asked him, why are you here? Han Song was just about to say that it was Han Yao's maid who suddenly hurried back to the house and said that she had been beaten, so he and his grandmother rushed over. The lady over there has already asked King Dingyuan with a sullen face, what's going on? Since you are all here, who dares to beat Yao Yao in front of you? This matter cannot be explained in a few words, and King Dingyuan is about to elaborate. Ling Chu already said quietly, I did it. The sharpness in Mrs. Tai's eyes flashed, her eyes fell on Princess Dingyuan's hand holding Ling Chu's arm, and her face became darker. Who gave you the courage to hit our girl from Prince Dingyuan's palace? Just as Ling Chu was about to speak, a majestic voice from beside him spoke first. Mother, of course I gave it to you. Ling Chu was stunned and looked at King Dingyuan with a complicated expression. Princess Dingyuan did not look at her husband, but patted Ling Chu's hand gently as if to comfort him. The wife looked at her son in astonishment. Han Song frowned and glanced at everyone's faces. He felt inexplicably that his eldest brother and Miss Ling were the children of his father, the queen, and his mother's concubine. He and Han Yao are outsiders. Han Yao originally wanted to cry to Mrs. Tai, but when she saw King Dingyuan's face looking bad, she felt frightened. King Dingyuan didn't give Ling Chu a chance to speak. He looked directly at Mrs. Tai and focused on the matter. After hearing this, Mrs. Tai's expression did not change much, and her face remained calm. No one could see what she was thinking. Han Yao felt a little panicked, wiping her tears and feeling aggrieved and sad. Grandma, I was just a newborn baby back then. I had no idea what was happening, and I couldn't help myself. Grandma, I don't believe that I am not a child of the royal family. The madam had a sullen face. Seeing that she was anxious and uneasy, she looked at her lightly. When Han Yao stopped crying, she said to King Dingyuan, the Dong family is dead. There is no evidence of his death now. Who knows what the truth was back then? Since Yao Yao calls me grandmother, she is my child of Prince Dingyuan. End of chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 337. Chapter 334 Fish Eyes as Pearls. The wife just finished speaking. Suddenly, a sarcastic sneer came, I haven't returned to Beijing for many years, but I didn't know that Madame Tai likes to treat fish eyes as pearls. The wife looked at Qing Feng with a gloomy face, her eyes looked at his familiar face for a while, and then she asked tentatively, but Prince Yao of Prince Rui's palace? Qing Feng raised his eyebrows, it seems that even though the wife is old, her eyes are not blind. But why do you insist on treating those turbid fish eyes as treasures? You don't mind the price being reduced when you are old. Hearing Qing Feng keep comparing herself to fish eyes, Han Yao was so angry that she trembled all over. However, he was concerned about his status as the heir apparent of Prince Rui's palace, so he had to endure his anger. After Dong's death, her soul stood beside her body stupidly, unable to accept that she was killed by King Dingyuan like this. Mr. Dong was angry and unwilling. When Qing Feng compared her precious Han Yao to the eyes of a fish, she became even more furious. He turned around and rushed towards Ling Chu. "You disaster star, why didn't you die in the Taoist temple? Why did you come back to harm my Yao Yao? Go and die." Before Ling Chu made a move, Qing Feng snorted in displeasure, raised his hand and pinched Dong's soul. The dowager's face was filled with anger. She had never been ridiculed like this before. If Qing Feng wasn't the prince of Prince Rui's palace, she would definitely have her guards kill him. The wife took a deep breath and suppressed her anger. "I don't need Prince Yao to worry about the affairs of Prince Dingyuan's residence. I am not yet blinded by old age. I can tell clearly whether it is a fish eye or a pearl." Seeing Qing Feng preparing to speak again, King Dingyuan had a headache. The madam is still his mother no matter what, and he doesn't want to see her being humiliated in public again and again. Just when he was about to speak, Qing Feng already said, "So, even if your Dingyuan prince's bloodline is wrong, it won't be a problem. Then Mr. Dong is dead. It was a mistake, and there is no way to pursue it. It doesn't matter if the royal family's bloodline is not important. The most important thing for me, the children of Prince Dingyuan, is to be filial. Yao Yao even broke her leg in order to pray for me. Such filial piety is really rare. She is worthy of my daughter from Prince Dingyuan's palace." Han Yao was stunned at first, then ecstatic. The words of the madam are tantamount to acknowledging her identity. King Dingyuan frowned and said disapprovingly, "Mother, since the two of them have mistaken identities, they should return to their respective positions and follow the right path." Mrs. Tai was unmoved. "Why, Yao Yao knows how to be filial, but you are going against my will." King Dingyuan didn't know why his wife wanted to protect Han Yao, but he didn't give in. "Mother, these are two different things, how can they be confused?" Although Princess Dingyuan does not want to leave Han Yao in her heart, Ling Chu is her biological daughter. She owes her too much and she must exchange their identities. Pursing her lips, the princess greeted Mrs. Zhang, and then pointed at Grandma Zhang. This grandma used to be Dong's confidant. She was the one who helped Dong give birth to the child at Kongsu Temple. The identities of the two children were also changed by Mrs. Dong. The mother-in-law Zhang knew exactly who was whose child. Mrs. Tai didn't look at Nanny Zhang, and said impatiently to the princess, "I told you that Mrs. Dong is dead and there is no way to know the truth. This mama's words are not credible." King Dingyuan and the princess said in unison, "Mother." The dowager queen's face was gloomy, and she interrupted what the two were still saying. "The queen mother dislikes disobedient and unfilial people, and the emperor has always advocated that her subjects and people should practice filial piety. Do you want to go against the will of the emperor and the queen mother?" The wife carried out the emperor and the queen mother. King Dingyuan and the princess could not resist. Qing Feng was annoyed and wanted to speak, but was. Ling Chu stopped him. "She is not the original owner and has no intention of returning to Dingyuan Prince's mansion." The wife didn't recognize her, and she happened to have no intention of recognizing her. Ling Chu was not from this era, and did not want to be trapped in the inner house all his life, like a lady who could never leave the house or step outside. Moreover, even if she wanted to, her little life would not allow it. In order to live well, she must continue to earn money and accumulate merit. If she lived in Dingyuan Prince's mansion, she would have to abide by many rules. It would be impossible for her to run out every day. She finally broke away from the shackles of Ling Mansion and lived alone on Kintai Road. She did not want to go to Dingyuan Prince's mansion to make herself unhappy. Now that Mrs. Dong is dead and her identity has been found out, those in the Ling Mansion can no longer use her marriage in exchange for benefits. Her life will definitely be more comfortable in the future. After she had saved enough money and merit, and stabilized her life, she left the capital to see the mountains and rivers of this dynasty. As for Han Yao, it would be best for her to stay in the palace and be her county mistress, but if she still wants to come and dance in front of her, She doesn't mind sending her down to the underworld to reunite with the Dong family. Ling Chu did not look at Mrs. Tai, but turned around and said to Qing Feng with a smile, "Third senior brother, let's go. Don't you want to taste Kyoto's delicacies? How about I invite you to cyclamen?" Qing Feng frowned for a moment, but immediately smiled and said, "Of course that's good. I've missed cyclamen's delicacies for a long time, and I don't know if their white immortal wine is still as delicious as it was back then." Seeing that Ling Chu was about to leave with Qing Feng, the princess rushed over quickly and shouted, "Chu Chu!" King Dingyuan saw her chasing Ling Chu and did not stop her. He just walked to Dong's body, bent down and pulled out the Xiaochun knife from her body. Han Yao looked horrified. "Grandma." Mrs. Tai frowned and looked at King Dingyuan. She was about to blame him, but she saw him walking towards Taoist master Mingzhen with a knife. Mingzhen's face changed drastically. "Your Majesty, please spare my life. Pandeo was deceived by Mrs. Dong back then and didn't know that Miss Ling was your daughter. I beg your Majesty to spare Pandeo's life." King Dingyuan looked cold and ignored his plea for mercy. He couldn't hold back his anger when he thought that Ling Chu had been criticized for punishing his relatives since he was a child. Seeing that King Dingyuan insisted on killing him, Mingzhen was frightened and wanted to escape but was unable to move at all. In panic, regardless of whether or not Chao Hanyao said urgently, "County Master Wenan, although you and I don't have the name of husband and wife, we are actually husband and wife. We have performed the courtesy of Zhou Gong, and you just watch your father kill me." Hanyao was secretly happy when she saw that King Dingyuan wanted to kill Mingzhen, but she didn't expect him to suddenly expose the matter. Immediately screamed in anger, "You, what are you talking nonsense? Father, he slandered me, please kill him quickly." Mingzhen saw that instead of interceding for him, Han Yao actually asked King Dingyuan to kill him. Completely irritated by her. Since he can't survive, he might as well break the pot and throw it away. He wants the world to know what kind of thing King Dingyuan's daughter is. Mingzhen sneered, "Why are you pretending to be innocent now, lord of the county? Who knows that you were played by Xiaoshanbo back in Yuhangyuan? You were afraid that Miss Ling would take back the identity you occupied. In order to take away her life, you used your body to seduce me, just to take away her merit and luck, and thus killed her. It's the last day of the month, please vote." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 338. P.S. This thank you letter is a free chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 339. Hanyao was so angry. This obviously took away her virginity and even ruined her reputation. "Master Mingzhen, I know you have been poisoned, but you cannot fabricate facts to destroy my innocence in order to survive. Miss Ling, do you hate me so much? In order to destroy me, you used poison to force Taoist Master Mingzhen to slander me and ruin my reputation. Are you trying to force me to die? Father, queen, mother, and concubine, no matter what the truth was back then, I was just a baby at the time. I was so innocent. Are you only satisfied if I die and my position is given to Miss Ling?" Hanyao raised her neck and let her tears fall down one by one. The choked cry was full of grievance and sadness. Although Mingzhen thinks Hanyao's posture of pear blossoms and rain is quite beautiful, but in the face of life and death, he has no other thoughts. The prince, princess, and Pandeo are not lying. If you don't believe it, you can find someone to come and examine the county master's body, and then you will know whether what Pandeo said is true or false. Mingzhen saw that they wanted to recognize Ling Chu, but unfortunately Mrs. Tai was unwilling to admit Ling Chu's identity. Ming Zhen knew that the prince and princess must be unhappy. Since they killed Dong, Han Yao must also be dissatisfied with Han Yao for having occupied Ling Chu's identity for so many years and enjoying everything that should have been hers. He deliberately exposed Han Yao's innocence in order to make the wife dislike her. If the wife could change her mind and recognize Ling Chu, King Dingyuan and his wife might be happy and spare his life. Ling Chu originally wanted to leave, but the princess held him back. After listening to Han Yao's words, she decided not to leave at all. He looked at her steadily and said softly, "Does the county chief want to prove his innocence by death?" It happened that Mrs. Dong just died and had not had time to be reincarnated. You can still catch up with her even if you die now, and you, mother and daughter, can't catch up with her on the road to hell. Can be a companion. County Lord, please get on your way. Han Yao was going crazy. She just said that, not wanting to die at all. This said this, she is now riding a tiger and it is difficult to get off. Han Yao was secretly angry and could only look at Han Song standing beside her with aggrieved eyes. Seeing him looking over, she opened her mouth and choked, "Second brother." Just after I shouted, it seemed like I had some grievance and had to stop. He lowered his head and gritted his teeth, covering his chest with his hands, looking at his broken leg with painful tears. Han Song saw her tears falling heavily on the wound, and felt extremely distressed. He glared at Ling Chu with dissatisfaction. No matter what happened back then, it had nothing to do with Yao Yao. She was just a weak woman, and now she has a broken leg. She is so pitiful. Even if you go back to Prince Dingyuan's palace, she won't do anything to you. You can't tolerate her so much, do you have to force her to death? As soon as Han Song spoke, Han Lin frowned and glared at him. My father, the queen, mother, and concubines are all here, so please stop saying a few words. Han Song looked at Han Lin inexplicably. Brother, I am also a member of this family, what can't I say? Besides, what I said is right, Yao Yao is just a weak woman, what can she do to hinder her? Han Lin stared at him with hatred. King Dingyuan looked at Han Song expressionlessly. In 2 days, you will go to the military camp with me for training. Father, this. Han Song was regretful and confused. He was obviously talking about Han Yao and Ling Chu, so why was he suddenly asked to go to the military camp? Han Song has always known that the title of the palace was to be passed on to his eldest brother. He had no objection to this. Being the heir to the royal palace was not that easy. His father has been very strict with his eldest brother since he was a child. Not only must he be good at reading, he must also practice martial arts every day. With Han Lin at the front, Han Song was happy and relaxed. He originally planned to take the path of a civil servant in the future. The father, the king, and the mother-in-law also acquiesced to this. But Han Song didn't understand why his father suddenly wanted him to join the military camp. He wanted to say no, but it was obvious that his father's face was dark and he couldn't help but feel worried. If you refuse, you won't dare to speak. Han Yao was secretly annoyed when she saw that he no longer spoke for her. The wife lowered her eyes, but she was thinking in her heart. She didn't expect that Han Yao would lose her virginity to a dying old man. It seems like Mr. Dong is just like Mr. Dong, he cannot get on the stage. Mrs. Tai's eyes fell on Han Yao's face, and then she glanced at her figure. Seeing her broken leg, she was a little dissatisfied. Although he has lost his innocence, Han Yao is pretty good at playing chess, calligraphy, and painting, and his appearance and figure are quite satisfactory. Although the leg is broken, the imperial doctor is here, but it only costs a little money. She may train it herself and it may not be of great use. Mrs. Tai retracted her calculating gaze and turned to King Dingyuan and his wife. There is no need to investigate the past matters. Let Yao Yao follow me from now on. Han Yao was ecstatic in her heart, but moved to tears on her face. Grandma, I know you are the best to Yao Yao. From now on, Yao Yao must offer incense to the Buddha every day and pray for them to bless her grandmother with long life and good health. King Dingyuan was dissatisfied with the Taifu's decision, but she would not change what she had decided. With anger in his heart, he touched Mingzhen's neck with the Xiaochun knife in his hand. Mingzhen's soul looked at his corpse with wide eyes in disbelief, lying in a pool of blood. He was actually killed by King Dingyuan just like that. Mingzhen's anger surged, and he saw Qingfeng and Ling Chu both looking towards him. My heart tightened, knowing that I couldn't defeat these two people. The soul floated up quickly and wanted to escape. How could Qingfeng allow him to succeed? With a cold snort, he raised his hand, grabbed his soul, and sealed it into a container. Seeing that Mingzhen was killed, Han Yao was shocked, but was immediately followed by surprise and elation. Even if her identity is exposed, it doesn't matter. As long as the madam is still willing to recognize her, she will be the girl of Dingyuan Prince's palace. That is really unpopular, even her own grandmother is unwilling to recognize her. Ling Chu glanced at Han Yao's pride, turned around and said, I forgot to tell the madam that I broke the county master's leg. Han Yao's proud smile froze. Seeing the dowager's face sinking, he said urgently, Grandma, my leg is definitely broken. That Miss Ling must be jealous of your kindness to me, so she wants to slander me. When Ling Chu saw the Thai madam's expression turned ugly, he knew that a thorn had been planted in her heart. He ignored Han Yao and left. Looking at her leaving figure, Princess Dingyuan felt uncomfortable and guilty. She did not stop Ling Chu anymore, but turned to look at King Dingyuan. Your Majesty, I will not return home. My daughter, I care for myself. The wife's face was full of displeasure and she was about to rebuke. Princess Dingyuan didn't even look at her, she turned around and hurried after Ling Chu. Mrs. Tai almost fell down in anger and said to King Dingyuan, look at her. King Dingyuan didn't wait for her to finish speaking, but interrupted her directly, Mom, you must be tired after being out for such a long time. Let the guards take you back. The madam's face darkened. King Dingyuan ignored it, returned the Xiaochun Dao to Wei Feng, thanked him, turned around, and stalked towards the direction where the princess left. Thanks to Kai Yuning for the reward of 5,000 starting coins, and the boy who loves reading historical novels for the reward of 100 starting coins. Thanks to Xia, Wei Xiaoxiu, Angel 123456, Wei 0310, Wei 0310, Wei 0310, Mary Todd, Jia 03, Nan Xiangxi, Purple Aftertaste, Ike Ya, Years Are Like Dust. DD, 1108171041266161, Sashimi VE, 202209182102476619, Kai Yuning, Freedom Like the Wine 459, Years Like Dust. DD, Chinni Inkstone Monthly Ticket. Thank you, A. Z, Yanglia Bank, Bet Tax's Head is Sleepy, Dusty Memory, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, UN1, 20230208431051, Silver Star, White Clouds in the Sky L, Momentary Negligence. 170111191201901, Learn to be Content, 20230216687754 and other book friends recommended votes. Thanks to the book friends who support Hongxiu Xiaoxiang. End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 340. Chapter 336 Compensation. The wife was furious. Knowing that the two of them were dissatisfied with her unwillingness to admit Ling Chu's identity. Han Yao curled her lips. The more King Dingyuan and the princess defended the bitch, the less the wife wanted to see her. Han Lin's eyes fell on her face and he paused, but didn't say anything. I gave the madam a few words of advice and then took her back to the house. Ling Chu originally planned to go back home to wash up, and then invite her 3 senior brothers to Cyclamen for dinner. But when she went out, she saw King Dingyuan, Princess, and Han Lin standing at the door of her house. She twitched at the corner of her mouth when she saw the row of boxes and cages on the ground that looked like moving boxes. "You are." When Princess Dingyuan saw her, she immediately smiled and stepped forward quickly. "Chu, are you going out?" Ling Chu nodded. "I was planning to accompany third senior brother to Xianqi for dinner." After Qing Feng received the letter from her master, she left her own affairs behind and rushed back to save her without stopping. Ling Chu was having a headache how to repay such a great kindness. He wanted to taste the delicacies of the capital, so Ling Chu naturally wanted to treat him. Even though the princess wanted Ling Chu to be by her side all the time, she knew that Qing Feng had saved her and it was not easy to stop him. Can only say with a smile on his face, "In that case, you go quickly." Ling Chu did not move, his eyes fell on the row of boxes and cages next to him. Seeing her doubts, Prince Dingyuan stood aside with his hands folded and said, "From today on, your mother-in-law and I will move in with you." Han Lin stood aside with a smile and followed closely. "Your house is quiet, big brother will come and stay for a while. The madam doesn't want to recognize her, so these 3 people want to move in with her? If the original owner is still alive, he must be happy about it. But she is not the original owner." Ling Chu wanted to say that she lived well alone and did not need their company. She wanted these 3 people to go back to wherever they came from. Seeing her silence, the princess felt uncomfortable. Just when he was about to say something, King Dingyuan had already said to Ling Chu, "Since we are going to eat, we should go early and come back early. There is no need to worry about us, your mother-in-law and I will make arrangements for you." After King Dingyuan finished speaking, he waved his hand to the maid to move the boxes and cages in. He himself was ready to go to Ling Chu's house as if he was familiar with the road. When passing by Qing Feng, she nodded to him gently. Qing Feng raised his eyebrows and put away the folding fan with a snap. "Your Majesty, are you so confident that I will go out with Xiaoxi?" King Dingyuan paused and said quietly, "You are Chu's senior brother. I have nothing to worry about. However, the prince has traveled such a long way back to Beijing, and it's quite tiring to think about it. Otherwise, you and Chu should stay here. I will ask the guards to invite the chef from Cyclamen to come to the house to cook, which will save the prince from having to go all the way to Cyclamen." Although Qing Feng was quite satisfied that Ding Yuan Wang and his wife and Han Lin could move over to live with Ling Chu, they also knew that King Ding Yuan persuaded him to stay because he wanted to keep Ling Chu as well so that they could have dinner with her. But Qing Feng didn't want him to have his wish. Things that are too easy to obtain are often not cherished. Qing Feng smiled and said, "Although I have traveled a long way, it is nothing. Since you want to taste delicious food, it's natural to go to Xiankeli, which is crowded and lively." Although King Dingyuan felt a little regretful, he couldn't say anything else. Ling Chu had a headache. She wanted to refuse King Dingyuan and his companions to move here, but the princess looked at her eagerly and cautiously, for fear of upsetting her, and she couldn't bear it. That's all. The prince, princess and Han Lin don't seem to be difficult to get along with at the moment, and they don't look like those ignorant people. Let them live if they want. She has inherited the body of the original owner, so she must help her fulfill her filial piety. Qing Feng said hello to Princess Dingyuan and Han Lin, and left with Ling Chu. When they arrived at Xianqi, Qing Feng was not polite to Ling Chu. He ordered a large table of dishes and 2 jugs of wine, and had a hearty meal. As soon as I put down my chopsticks, a steward came to the door. It turned out that King Rui heard that his son had returned to the capital, but he waited and waited but did not see him return. So he sent out his servants to inquire around. The steward of Prince Rui's mansion happened to be out on business. He happened to hear someone mentioning that Prince Rui was in Cyclamen, so he came over. Ling Chu's life was saved. Ding Yuan Wang and his wife moved to live with her, and Qingfeng could no longer stay in Ling Chu's house. Naturally, I have to go back to Prince Rui's mansion with the steward. Ling Chu settled the bill and took Xiaoji back. She found that King Dingyuan, the princess, and Han Lin were all waiting for her in the flower hall. As soon as the princess saw her, she immediately pulled her to sit next to her with a smile on her face and greeted her softly. These three people stayed there for more than 10 days. After getting along with her these days, Ling Chu found that the princess almost wanted to be by her side all the time. More. Seeing that she was plainly dressed, he asked his maid to invite a famous embroiderer from Kyoto the next day to tailor her clothes. I found that Ling Chu didn't have much jewelry, so I wanted to take her to the silver shop to choose. She was not upset after being rejected by Ling Chu. But he turned around and took the maid out of the house and went straight to the silver building. He carefully selected a lot of jewelry and gave it back to her. From time to time, he also asked the maid and mother-in-law to return to Dingyuan Prince's mansion and bring the treasures in her warehouse to Ling Chu. It was not just the princess who wanted to make it up to her. Even King Dingyuan was extremely gentle in front of her. He asked the guards to go back to the palace to bring a lot of supplements, and asked the princess to order the kitchen to prepare Ling Chu's body. Knowing that she wanted to prepare medicine to maintain her health, he asked Xiaoji to get the prescription and asked his to go to a famous medical clinic in Kyoto to buy the medicine for her. Even went to the palace in person to ask for the emperor's order, and then went to the imperial hospital to find the imperial doctor who also gave her medicine. And Han Lin saw that she was naughty, so as soon as he left the house, he would definitely find famous food for her when he came back. Ling Chu felt guilty as he enjoyed the efforts of the three of them, but couldn't refuse. Because every time she refused, although the princess didn't say anything, Ling Chu found guilt and sadness in her eyes. His behavior changed again the next day, and he even tried to please her cautiously. Ling Chu was about to leave the mansion, but the princess did not detain her in the mansion, but she also did not let her go out alone, but accompanied her personally. Knowing that Ling Chu wanted to make money from the Yuan Tower, the princess felt distressed and wanted to give her all her dowry. The prince had no objection to this. He only said that it was the princess's dowry and that it was up to her to make her own arrangements. Han Lin knew that he would inherit the entire Dingyuan palace in the future, and he would benefit the most. He also knew that the princess wanted to give the dowry to Ling Chu because she wanted to compensate her for the suffering she had suffered in the past 10 years. Han Lin felt that he was not good as an elder brother but did not express it. So he paid Ling Chu 50,000 taels of silver out of his own pocket. Ling Chu is not the original owner, so he cannot accept it with peace of mind. The princess didn't want Ling Chu to have to work hard, so she wanted to persuade her to close the Yuan Tower. But when Ling Chu told her that the purpose of opening the Yuan Tower was to accumulate merit, the princess immediately gave up her thoughts of persuading her to close it. But he asked the cook to cook all kinds of food for Ling Chu in different ways every day, hoping to help her take good care of her health. Thanks to 2023-082-8227. AC, Yunyan Zongshen, China Fuse, Daoyao. EB, Daoyao. EB, Purgatory Phoenix King, Eden of the East, Ixixi, Heartbeat on the left, Mary Todd, Forget Me Not, Scar Red, Little Half Apple, 641,417, Shangsuan Yu, Why Will You Grow Old, 2023010520083631 and other book friends recommend and vote for support. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 341. Ling Chu thought that the prince, princess, and Han Lin would probably move back to the palace after staying there for more than 10 days. Unexpectedly, After waiting and waiting, they had no intention of moving back. The princess kept making insinuations for 3 days, trying to get Ling Chu to move back to the palace with them. After being rejected by Ling Chu, although he was disappointed, he did not force her. It will only be brought up again in a day or two. The prince happened to be taking a rest that day, and the four of them were sitting together drinking tea after breakfast. The princess was both relieved and distressed to see that Ling Chu had finally gained a little more flesh on his face under her recent care. Seeing that her face looked fine, the princess endured it and brought up the old words again. Unexpectedly, as soon as the words came out of his mouth, Ling Chu had not said anything. The prince said, "This house is nice, clean, and not far from the royal street. It's good to live here." The prince said it calmly. The princess glared at him. Han Lin paused at the teacup in his hand and looked at the prince in surprise. His father was obviously looking forward to Ling Chu returning to the palace with them, so why did he suddenly object again? Ling Chu was also curious. Seeing that the princess was about to get angry, the prince could only smile reassuringly. Although there are many courtyards in the mansion, there is no place suitable for Chu Chu to live. I thought, those courtyards are either far away, or the scenery is not good enough, so I might as well have Yeoguang Pavilion demolished. The princess was startled, knowing that she had misunderstood her husband, and her anger quickly dissipated. Subconsciously said, "You demolished Yeoguang Pavilion? Where will Yao Yao live?" As soon as the words left her mouth, the princess realized that Ling Chu was beside her. Can't help but look at her cautiously. However, he found that she was not angry, but just looked at the prince with curiosity. The princess breathed a sigh of relief. Even though she learned that Han Yao was not her biological child, she had been really distressed for more than 10 years. When she suddenly heard that her yard was being demolished, she blurted out those words subconsciously. King Dingyuan also glanced at Ling Chu and then said to the princess, "Han Yao has moved to King Ai Pavilion." King Ai Pavilion is an independent small courtyard, although it is close to Shaoan Hall where the dowager lives. But no matter in terms of size or scenery, it is not as good as the Yeoguang Pavilion where Han Yao lived before. A few days ago, I had Yeoguang Pavilion demolished and I'm asking craftsmen to build a new one. It's not finished yet, we'll move it back after it's completed. The princess immediately beamed when she heard that Yeoguang Pavilion was demolished and a new courtyard was built for Ling Chu. He was also worried that Ling Chu wouldn't like it, so he complained to the prince, "Who did you ask to design it, and what kind of construction did you plan to build? Why didn't you tell us? What if it is not built to your liking?" King Dingyuan was stunned. "I asked the craftsman from the Ministry of Industry to design it. I didn't think carefully about it. I should have asked Chu Chu first what style he wanted." Ling Chu was a little surprised. In order to build a yard for her, King Dingyuan would demolish Han Yao's yard. But she doesn't plan to move to the palace. King Dingyuan called a servant and asked him to go back to the palace immediately and get the drawings. Ling Chu said, "No need, I." Perhaps seeing that she was about to refuse, King Dingyuan interrupted her and said, "Your mother and concubine are right. After all, this is the place you want to live. It must be built to your liking in order to live comfortably. When the drawings are brought over, you can take a good look at them. If you are not satisfied with anything, just bring it up and I will ask the craftsman to modify it." Princess Dingyuan also smiled and agreed, "You don't have to worry about it in the beginning. We will build whatever kind of yard you want. Anyway, the craftsmen haven't finished building it yet, and we have no time to redesign it." Princess Yu said, "The higher the interest." Worried that Ling Chu didn't know what the courtyards of the ladies in Kyoto were like, he gave her various introductions in detail. King Dingyuan and Han Lin were not bothered either. They held teacups and smiled while listening to the princess' explanation to Ling Chu. The atmosphere was warm and beautiful. Looking at the excited princess, Ling Chu wanted to say several times that she did not plan to move to the palace, but the words came to her lips but she couldn't bear to say them. Ling Chu sighed in his heart, it would be great if the original owner was still alive. The better the prince and princess are to her, the more she feels she deserves it. After the servant brought the drawings, the princess immediately took Ling Chu to look at them together. Worried that they would not understand, the prince explained it to them in detail, and Han Lin also came over and listened with a smile. The princess suddenly frowned, is this drawing wrong? I remember that Yeoguang Pavilion is not this big. The prince glanced at her and said with a smile, you remember correctly, I had someone cut down the bamboo garden next to it and merged the land into it, so it is larger than before. Han Yao liked bamboo and asked a gardener to plant a bamboo forest next to Yeoguang Pavilion. The prince thought that since the Yeoguang Pavilion had been demolished, leaving the bamboo garden would be an eyesore, so he might as well have it demolished. The princess was worried that Ling Chu would be upset, so she quickly changed the subject and asked about something else. After the prince finished speaking, the couple asked Ling Chu what he wanted to change. To be fair, this drawing is very well designed. It can be seen that the craftsmen from the Ministry of Works put a lot of thought into it, even taking into account the flowers and plants in the yard. The prince also asked them to design a small lake, plan to plant some lotus flowers and raise some fish, and also build a 3-story building by the lake so that Ling Chu could enjoy the cool air and enjoy the scenery in the summer. Seeing that the prince, princess, and Han Lin were waiting, Ling Chu sighed in his heart, but with a smile on his face, he said, Father, Prince and Mother, this courtyard is very well designed. I like it very much. There is no need to modify it. Just follow it, just use the drawings to build it. Chu. After moving here for such a long time, I finally heard Ling Chu call them father, queen, mother and concubine. The princess was very happy. But when he opened his mouth, tears fell one by one. The prince looked at Ling Chu with kind and pleased eyes. Seeing the princess crying, he hurriedly patted the back of her hand comfortingly. Han Lin felt sad but joked, concubine, please stop crying. Are you worried that Chu Chu doesn't have enough money, so you plan to give her some golden beans to spend on it? He then said to the princess's maid, Han Chiao, if you don't hurry up and bring a big basin over and put the golden beans in them, it would be a pity to waste them. Han Kiao cooperated with a smile, okay, princess, don't cry now, wait for the slave to go and bring the big basin. The prince didn't stop him, he just watched with a smile. The princess was embarrassed to cry anymore after being teased by these two people. He gave Han Lin an angry look and took out a handkerchief to wipe away his tears. Ling Chu gave Han Lin a thumbs up. Han Lin glanced at her and immediately hit the snake on the stick, sister, you called me father, queen, mother and concubine, why didn't you call me brother? Ling Chu glanced at him sideways, aren't you worried that I don't have enough money to spend? Shouldn't you also give me some golden beans so that I can change my mind? Han Lin choked. This time the princess looked at him with a smile and asked his servant to bring him a big basin to help him put the golden beans. Han Lin looked helpless and could only slowly take out a few round and small golden beans from his purse and throw them to Ling Chu. Ling Chu was not polite. After taking it, he immediately changed his words with a smile, thank you, brother. Thanks to book friends such as Stupid Little Girl, Wai Wei Xiaoxiu, Qingkong 494, Tian Xiao, etc. for their monthly support. Thanks to 202103011064724333066, Jula N, Colorful Life, Meng Jing, Chen, Kingshit Shuang, Xingxin Mama, Pros. BA, Clip, UN1, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Jam Kitten, Xianbin, Shangsuan Yu, 20230105200836319, Stupid Girl, Heartbeat on the Left, All Living Things, 20220218318055565, Bet Tax's Head is Sleepy, China Fuse, Walking in the Clouds, Clear Sky 464, Free as the Wine 459, Why You Get Old, Why You Get Old, Forget Me Not, Knife Scarred, Blue Binjaiolian. Ed. 654 729, Yulian Yuman. BC, Xiao Ur 408, Silent Blessings, Dually. AC, Ixixi, Chen, The Hacked Book Friend Can't Stop Resign In, Pingguo Degree, A. Purple Leaf, Eden of the East, White Clouds in the Sky L, 641,417 and other book friends recommendation vote support. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 342. Ling Chu thought about it. Since the original owner was no longer here, she inherited the body of the original owner. The prince and the princess really loved her, so she would try to treat them as her parents. While the family of four was enjoying themselves, A came to the palace. Eunuch Cao met King Dingyuan and greeted him with a smile. But his expression was a little strange. King Dingyuan was a little suspicious, and waited until he heard that Eunuch Cao was here to announce the decree to Ling Chu. Looking a little surprised. But I didn't think much about it. I was wondering, could it be that the emperor knew that he recognized Ling Chu and wanted to grant her a title? Although he was speculating in his heart, King Dingyuan didn't say anything. He only asked the boy to set up the incense table. But when Eunuch Cao finished reading the imperial edict, the family of four was shocked. King Dingyuan frowned and said in disbelief, Eunuch Cao, the emperor appointed my daughter as a guard flag. Did the father-in-law read the imperial decree wrong, or is there something wrong with the king's heirs? In fact, what King Dingyuan wanted to ask Eunuch Cao was, is the emperor crazy? Eunuch Cao could probably guess what he was thinking by looking at his expression. In fact, it was not only King Dingyuan who thought the emperor was crazy. When the emperor made this decision, the courtiers thought that the emperor had become a coward. Eunuch Cao was slandering in his heart, but he said with a smile on his face, Your Majesty, Zheji read it correctly, and your ears are also fine. The emperor indeed named Miss Ling the little flag of the Jinyue Zioki. This is absolutely true. Knowing that King Dingyuan still couldn't believe it, Eunuch Cao simply handed him the imperial edict. King Dingyuan calmly received the edict and read it 10 lines at a time. Eunuch Cao is right. The imperial edict is indeed to confer Ling Chu the title of Jinyue Zioki. King Dingyuan was still in disbelief. Throughout the dynasties, there has never been a woman as a royal guard. The emperor would not personally issue a decree to seal a 7th-rank Jinyue Zioki. However, the emperor not only issued an imperial edict to Ling Chu. This edict was written by him himself. The jade seal on the cover is also genuine. King Dingyuan put aside the suspicion that someone had forged the imperial edict and looked up at Eunuch Cao. I left the capital a few days ago on errands and just came back last night. What happened in the court? King Dingyuan guessed well. Something happened in the DPRK. But Eunuch Cao couldn't talk about government affairs in front of everyone, so he could only make a few vague remarks. Then he handed a black Xiaokaizao suit to Ling Chu and left with his little father-in-law. As soon as Eunuch Cao left, the princess became extremely anxious. King Dingyuan comforted him a few words and hurried out of the mansion to inquire. It didn't take long for him to come back with a sullen face. King Dingyuan has found out the matter clearly. Some time ago, the emperor ordered Ning Chui to leave Beijing on business. But before he finished his official business, he suddenly returned to Beijing privately. After the prince and the second prince knew about it, they secretly asked officials of their own factions to impeach the emperor and apply eye medicine. The censors at the censorship station are even more insistent on this matter. Even listed many crimes against Ning Chui, such as excluding dissidents, using severe torture to extract confessions during the trial, and handling the case with too harsh methods. These people jointly put pressure on the emperor, secretly or overtly, and wanted to deprive Ning Chui of his position as a royal guard. The emperor naturally did not want to agree, and even wanted to kill the official who proposed to take away his position. The official knew that he had touched the dragon's scales and was so frightened that he changed his mind and proposed that Ning Chui should be demoted to the rank of Jinyai Wei Tongzi. Seeing that the emperor was still unhappy, the official suggested that if Ning Chui could handle 100 cases within a year, he would be reinstated. As soon as the proposal came out, the prince and the second prince immediately asked officials from their own factions to come forward to second the proposal. The emperor was finally forced by the situation and had to agree. But my heart was not happy. After demoting Ning Chui's position, he immediately issued an order to confer Ling Chu the title of Jinyi Wei Zioki. This decree immediately aroused strong opposition from the courtiers. The reason is that there has never been a woman as a royal guard in all dynasties. Faced with everyone's opposition, the emperor was not angry this time. But he gave two options. That is to let all officials choose between demoting Ning Chui to Tongzi or Feng Ling Chu to the rank of Jinyi Wei Zioki. Of course no one wants to choose these two options. Some censors scolded the emperor for being a coward. But the emperor was determined this time. The censor's black gauze hat was taken off in court, and bluntly said that if anyone objects again, they will be dragged out and beheaded immediately. Facing the emperor's power, the Prince Sealings and the second princes finally chose Ling Chu to be the flag guard. After hearing what happened, the princess and Han Lin looked worried. On the other hand, Ling Chu was no longer surprised. Although she was really surprised when she heard the imperial edict at first. But she was not from this era after all, so she quickly thought about it and regarded this matter as just a job, and she just had to go to Jinyi Clinic to work every day from now on. Ling Chu was not as worried about this matter as King Dingyuan and others. Instead, she was worried about Ning Chui. The emperor sent him out to Beijing on errands, but he suddenly returned to Beijing privately. All in all, that was the time when her merit and luck were robbed by Taoist Ming Zhen, causing her soul to leave the body. Ling Chu still remembered that when his soul went to seek revenge against Han Yao, he happened to meet Ning Chui on the road as he led Wei Feng and Yin Sha back to Beijing in a hurry, and was chased by a group of men in black. Ling Chu also helped him and stopped the men in black. At that time, she was focused on seeking revenge against Han Yao and didn't think much about it. But now Ling Chu couldn't help but wonder, could it be that Ning Chui had received the news and learned that something had happened to her, so he left his official duties and rushed back to rescue her? How else could he use the Jade Help system to stabilize her soul at the critical moment when her soul left the body and was trapped by Ming Zhen with the 100 ghosts and formations? Even let his soul leave his body to save her life. The more Ling Chu thought about it, the more he felt that his analysis was correct. Ning Chui was demoted this time all to save her. Ling Chu owed Ning Chui so much, and Zhen was worried that he would not have the chance to repay him. This time, no matter whether it was due to emotion or reason, she had to help him reinstate his official position, otherwise her conscience would be uneasy. As long as he completes 100 cases within a year, Ning Chui can become the commander of the Jinyi Guards. She has a system and understands mysticism, so she will definitely be able to help. Seeing that Ling Chu had been silent, King Dingyuan thought that she was worried about her being a Zioki. The couple owed her too much and were not willing to let her work as an errand in Jinyi Wei and be ridiculed and embarrassed. King Dingyuan planned to enter the palace to ask the emperor to take back the imperial edict. But he was stopped by Ling Chu. Father, king, mother, concubine, the imperial edict has been issued, and there is absolutely no way for the emperor to take it back. It's just an errand at the Jinyi Guard station. Don't worry, I can handle it. The reason why the emperor appointed me as the imperial guard Zioki is probably to allow me to assist Mr. Ning in handling the case. Mr. Ning has saved my life many times, and I am the reason why he was demoted this time. I must join the Jinyi guards as an errand to help Lord Ning resume his duties as an official. King Dingyuan and the others did not know that Ning Chui had saved Ling Chu many times. In order to dispel the idea of King Dingyuan going to ask the emperor to take back the imperial edict, Ling Chu had to tell them everything about Ning Chui's rescue of her. After listening to what she said, King Dingyuan and his wife learned that their daughter indeed owed Ning Chui a lot of kindness, so they could only accept her as the imperial guard Zioking. Please vote. Please vote. Please vote.